Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today at your Pushback channel, Tacitus today, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the difference between the not only the turnouts in terms of numbers that the globalists can get to come to a protest march or whatever, but and conversely the amount of people that would turn up to a conservative or a meeting or movement that questions globalization or opposes its excesses, don't get anywhere near as many people. Now, on top of that, I've noticed a number of anti or question globalization meetings that happened in Britain recently, and they were recorded. And as the camera pans over the audience, you're lucky to see even one person under the age of 40. Now, I was having a look at one just a little earlier on today, and I spotted, because the camera panned, I spotted a guy who looked like he was, I don't know, about 20 years old, I suppose. And I thought, there's one. But it turns out he was actually doing the lighting and the IT stuff, and probably wasn't part of it anyway. But it's difficult to find. Difficult to see in the audience. Yeah, there was another one where the audience panned, and there was a couple of youngish girls. They're probably, I don't know, late teens, early 20s, just furiously texting on their phones, and I assume to their friends and so on. But they certainly weren't paying attention to the speakers, or didn't appear to be absorbed in any way in the issues. Now, and these people, they weren't screaming and shouting and carrying on. They sat there very politely with a lot of self-control. And when question time came, they weren't questions to try and go, well, you're a Nazi and I'm going to expose you for being a fucking Nazi. It wasn't anything like that. They were well thought out questions, and that were trying to help people understand the issues. That they weren't deliberately coming to oppose the speaker, but rather to participate in the exercise. So that's it. But the one I was looking at this morning, the hall that they're in, probably sat around 250 people, I would guess, and they weren't far off filling it up. So as the numbers go, that would probably that's fine. We're not talking like a big political rally here where you will get bigger numbers. The topic, I appreciate, is maybe not exciting, and has it requires a level of understanding of the issues before you can even appreciate what's being discussed and the sort of remedies that are being proposed. This is quite different from the straight emotional play that the globalists are using, and to get the kids out onto the street. But how is it possible that the globalists at such short notice can get hundreds, if not thousands, of placard wavers, young kids, 12, 13 years old, out on the street, whereas the other side appears incapable of motivating young people or people generally in any such numbers. There's, as you see in the placard wavers for climate change or climate action, whatever they call it. So let's just have a little look at that. How can one side get vast numbers onto the street so quickly, and the other side seems to struggle to get more than a couple of hundred people together? That would suggest on the face of it that one side enjoys massive community support, whereas the other side enjoys none. That's in fact not the case. The silent majority who are too busy going about their business and making a living and living very different lifestyles from the sort of activist class. Now, the activist class it comes from school and university, colleges, and from government departments and from NGOs. That's the activist class, which makes us wonder whether those that question globalization, I want to point out its many ills and its widespread destructive effect, whether there should be a body of NGOs or some approximation of that can mobilise people out on the street. Is the game going to be ultimately won by mobilising 12-year-old kids to wave placards on the street? Is that really relevant in the overall scheme of things? When you look at how artificial the Greta Thunberg exercise was, deliberate globalization, post-child creation, and how she was able to get meetings with prime ministers and presidents. I mean, what a fucking joke. But it goes to illustrate just how artificial the supposed activist class is. But just coming back, how one side can get so many people on the street now. Pretty much every high school in the West, and certainly in Australia, and you see it in Britain and the US and elsewhere, the high schools are blatantly and openly encouraging students to become activists, particularly young girls, but students generally. And they're giving students days off, time off to go placard waving. They can make the placards in school time, using materials that are purchased and paid for by the taxpayer. So there's a wide infrastructure of support. Now then, there's the NGOs that are happy to take these kids to into the city to do the demonstration. They're totally coordinated with the media class, again, globalist controlled, that will give them the most flattering portrayal and give them headline billing and climate change activists. School children say our future is in danger and we're all going to die. Take the thing what are you going to do, Mr. President, about climate change? You damn fucking Nazi! So that type of will you commit now to stopping climate change? You can just see how the whole thing's choreographed. And same with university students. Not only are they given time off, but they're encouraged to go. And I was surprised at how many lecturers are giving extra grades and credits and so on to students if they go out placard waving. Hey, you don't have to attend the lectures, don't worry about that. Just get the fuck out on the street and start waving placards and scream and shout, and I'll give you an A+ for your essay that you don't even bother handing in because you're too busy playing the activist. We also need to look at how the activist administration or the operations of the global activist class, again, globalist funded and very much part of the NGOs sort of set how the NGOs have got their activist officers, their professional recruiters and agitators actually given offices and resources inside the universities. That's how close they are to the universities. So these people can activate, can effectively say, okay, I need in 2 hours' time, I need a mob in downtown Sydney placard waving. And they're so totally coordinated and integrated with the university administration that they can actually get the lecturers to go and publicise the event themselves. So the lecturers will say, hey kids, guess what? There's a climate change or whatever it is, anti-racism, or we're going to stop Hitler and march in the city in 2 hours' time. Get down. Don't worry. No, screw the lecture. You get down there. Placards will be available on the corner of Smith and Jones Street, and food and drinks will be provided by the such and such NGO. And there are buses out the front to get you down there. And so, hey, go for it, kids. And any of you that attend will get an A+ for the next essay you hand in. So that with that sort of infrastructure and with that sort of support and the logistical support alone, that makes a massive difference to how quickly the numbers they can get and how quickly they can assemble them. So, and it's a very emotional play. So the kids see it as terribly cool. Oh, we're fighting Nazis. We're so virtuous. And they don't understand the issues. And wherever I've sort of seen these marches, and I've asked people, what are you marching? I don't know. Well, what are you hoping to achieve? I don't know. I just got a text saying that it was important that we do this. Oh, I don't know what it's about though. Yeah, so you get a big heavy tale of kids turning up because they got a text and it's cool to do it, and they think they're doing something really cool. I'm standing up for. I don't know what I'm standing up for. Oh, it doesn't matter. I'm here. Oh, it's cool. The chicks are hot. So you got to wonder what's going through the minds of these people. So it's a very emotional play, whereas the people attending the talks about the evils of globalization or the destructive effects of it, they have a far more sophisticated. They're not there based on emotion. Some of them might be, I guess, but they're not there at the talk based on emotion. They've got to leave their jobs. They're not getting time off. They're not getting paid for taking time off to go and attend these things. They're not getting limos and buses and so on to take them there. They're not getting free sandwiches and chilled water, and there's no logistical machine helping them, supporting them. So it's very different. That these are people who are independently minded, and they have to fund their actions out of their own resources and their own earnings, and have to do this completely in their own time. And if they do take any time off, it's going to cost them directly. Maybe they've got to travel across town and spend $50 on petrol or $20 on road tolls and this sort of thing. So turning up at one of these talks can cost them $70. It's going to be sort of in around dinner time, so that they've either got to stop and get some takeout food or something. So they could be spending $100 just to go there, just to turn up to listen to this. Whereas to the college kids, it's not costing them anything. Everything's being provided, everything's laid on, or the other activists, everything's being provided for them by the NGOs that have this artificial tax exemption existence that they live in order to push this activism. So the sources are quite different. The play on emotions are quite different. The requirement to understand why you're attending this meeting and what's being discussed and its relevance, those are very different. I would argue that a tiny fraction of the children turning up the placard wave have any understanding of the issues and have any appreciation of the facts that relate to those issues. A 12-year-old girl. I mean, there was recently a 12-year-old, I think it's about a 12-year-old girl that was crying, saying, "Well, the world's going to win if we don't do something. Nazis are." Now, it turns out that girl was a professional actress. She's been a child actress since the age of 5. And her and the two girls who were supposedly doing this job of consoling this distraught girl were also actors. And yet the whole thing was recorded by a very leftist, pro-globalist, pro-climate change activism media station that was given star billing. That clip is still being used today just to show how bad climate change is. No one says this is an actor, 3 actors who have been fully scripted, where the whole thing was choreographed and given a stage production. So again, these people, something that isn't stage managed and manufactured like that. I've spoken to younger people and asked them about the issues of climate change. They just shrug. Well, it is so. Don't have to discuss it. And they've also been trained, so anyone that questions it is a Nazi. So that's there. I don't have to talk to you. You're a Nazi because you don't agree with me. So anyone who doesn't agree with them is the Nazi. So it becomes sort of a loop where not only do they not understand what's going on, not only do they accept the lies that's told them, but they're unable to even discuss it without accusing anyone with a different view of being Hitler. So there are very, very different directions that these, the two camps are coming from. In order to understand the destructive nature of globalization, you do need quite a sophisticated understanding of not only how it was, how things were before globalization, but the degradation that globalization is forcing upon particularly Western societies at all levels. And to have that understanding or a keen understanding of that, you do need to be, you can't be 12 years old anyway. You do need to be in your 40s and 50s, which is why as the camera pans across an audience that questions globalization, there's a lot of people in their 60s and 70s and so on in that group, and understandably so, given those are the people who remember the pre-globalization days, bearing in mind that people under the age of 30 or mid-30s would know nothing but the globalization project. And so there's a very small number of them, but there's a small number of them that question globalization. Now, the effects of globalization, I mean, just to sort of bring it in some sort of net sense, is it's completely taken away the future of young people in the West. The purchasing power of the paycheck in the West has plummeted over the last 30 odd years or 25 years. And so, younger people have got almost no hope of having any stake in society. The idea of getting married and procreating, owning property, having a stake, a business, having a stake in the future of society, that these young people have none. The globalization project has stolen any last vestige of that from young people in the West. But instead of them attacking globalization because of it, the globalization machine has very effectively, by the way, and you've got to give this to them, they've managed to rechannel these children's sort of ire as to their lack of future and the futility of their existence. They're able to rechannel it to say, well, don't attack globalization, which is the real culprit of why you're in such a shit place, but instead say it's Nazis and it's climate change, and those are the big issues. And so these imaginary foes, if you fight those, that'll fix it. And of course, young people are being sucked in with the help of the teachers and teachers' unions, the academic lecturers, and so on. They're being encouraged to believe, well, those are the culprits, Nazis and climate change. When there is, it's not possible to impose a bigger lie and a bigger untruth on any population. But it seems the globalists are being, reasonably successful at it. It's got to be one of the greatest cons of all history. You've been with Tacitus today. Your pushback channel. Thank you for listening.